My name's Nathan, I'm 27, and I'm a paramedic. Long shifts, adrenaline dumps, heartbreak, and the constant smell of antiseptic are just part of my day. You learn not to flinch at blood or screaming. You learn to run toward chaos while everyone else runs away. But nothing I've seen in the back of an ambulance could have prepared me for what I came home to after a 15-hour shift last Saturday. I was drained. The kind of exhaustion where your bones ache and your brain feels like it's been wrung out like a wet towel. All I wanted was a shower, a warm plate of leftovers, and the sweet silence of my room. But as I pulled up to my parents' house, the house I was still living in to help them pay the mortgage after Dad's back injury, I could already hear the bass thudding through the driveway. There were cars everywhere, some parked on the lawn, one even halfway on the sidewalk like the driver couldn't be bothered. For a split second, I wondered if I'd driven to the wrong place. But no, my house number was staring back at me like it was smirking. The front door was wide open. People I'd never seen before spilled out onto the porch, drinks in hand, laughing like this was some college frat house. I stepped inside. The noise hit me like a punch to the gut. Music blaring, red cups littering the floor, a couple making out against the staircase. Someone knocked into me without so much as a glance. I scanned the crowd, stunned, until I saw a familiar figure near the living room. There he was, my younger brother Liam. 23, cocky, charming, a total slacker. He was standing on the coffee table, shirt half unbuttoned, holding a drink high in the air like he was some Roman emperor. And on his wrist, my watch. Not just any watch. My Omega Seamaster. The one I'd saved for over a year to buy. The one I wore on every shift, partly for the durability, partly for what it symbolized. Hard work, discipline, grit. And there it was, glinting under the cheap party lights on my brother's smug wrist. Before I could say a word, Mom appeared beside me. She looked genuinely delighted, cheeks flushed, eyes sparkling. "Surprise!" she shouted over the music, as if this was some long-awaited blessing. "It's Liam's engagement party." I blinked. "His what?" "Engagement party," she repeated, as if I was the one not making sense. "To Kelsey. Didn't he tell you?" No, he hadn't. I hadn't even known he was seeing someone seriously. The last I heard, he was still living off odd jobs and crashing on friends' couches until Mom guilt-tripped me into letting him stay here a few months ago. I should have said no then. I knew it. Before I could respond, Dad walked up, clapping Liam on the back. "Son, you deserve it. You've had a rough year." Then he turned to me, pulled something out of his pocket, and handed it. Not to me, but to Liam. "My car keys." "My car keys." "I know we didn't discuss it, Nathan," Dad said casually. "But we all talked. Me, your mother, even your Aunt Janet. And we think it's only fair. You hardly use the car with your long shifts, and Liam needs it more now. He's starting a family." I stood there, frozen. Not because I didn't understand what was happening, but because I did. They had given him my car. Without asking. Without warning. Just handed it over like it was some communal toy. Liam caught my eye, gave me a lazy shrug, and grinned. "Thanks, bro." I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. That would have only fed into whatever twisted narrative they were spinning. Instead, I smiled. A tight, small smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Of course," I said, and turned to head up the stairs. I ignored the partiers. Ignored the guy who asked me if the upstairs bathroom was safe to puke in. Ignored the way my heart was thudding with something between rage and disbelief. Once inside my room, I locked the door, sat down, let the adrenaline settle, and I started to think. Really think. I remembered every bill I'd paid this year to keep this house afloat. Every shift I picked up so Dad didn't have to go back to work. Every night I came home and found Liam playing video games on the couch I bought, eating food I paid for. I remembered Mom asking me if I could cover her credit card payment just this once, and Dad borrowing from my savings with the promise of paying it back. I remembered doing it all without complaint because they were my family. Because that's what you do, right? But at that moment, sitting in my room while 100 strangers trashed the house I helped pay for, while my brother wore my watch and drove my car, something inside me quietly, firmly shifted. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I packed. I had already moved most of my personal files and valuables to a small storage unit near the city after Liam moved in. Something about him being around made me nervous, like I was always one careless word away from losing everything. That storage unit? Best decision I'd ever made. By morning, the party was over. The living room looked like a war zone, spilled drinks, broken glass, furniture pushed aside. People were passed out on the floor, some snoring, others groaning. I tiptoed downstairs, past the wreckage, past my snoring uncle curled up with a throw pillow on the kitchen floor. My parents' bedroom door was closed. And the driveway? Empty. There was a note on the kitchen table. Not folded, not hidden. Just sitting there, waiting. I didn't leave a long letter. Just a few sentences in my neat handwriting. Short enough for anyone to read. But no one ever would. Not out loud. When they woke up, I imagine it took them a few seconds to register what was missing. The silence. The absence. The cold truth settling in, slowly. And what I wrote. That was the part that made everything sink in. But I'll tell you about that letter in a moment. First, you need to hear what happened when they realized what I'd done. Because that was when things really started to spiral. It started with the scream. A sharp, broken, morning after shriek that sliced through the groggy quiet of the house like a blade. I was already gone, of course, sipping coffee in a small Airbnb across town, watching the minutes tick by on my phone. I hadn't slept, but I wasn't tired. I felt clear, like someone had finally wiped the fog off the mirror I'd been staring into for years. The scream came from my mother. I could picture it perfectly, her stepping into the driveway in her robe, eyes scanning for my car. At first, confused, then pacing, then calling my name, then reading the note. I imagined the moment she saw it, my neat little block letters staring up from the paper. You've mistaken kindness for compliance. The car, the watch, the money, it was never yours to give away. I'm done being the backup plan. Don't contact me unless it's to return what you stole. Congratulations on the engagement. Just that. No anger. No dramatic monologue. Just the truth, plain and simple. Because I knew it would hit harder that way. And I was right. The calls started pouring in less than an hour later. First mom. 8 calls, all ignored. Then dad. Texts came in waves. Where are you? This isn't funny. We need to talk. Followed by a voicemail so long I didn't even bother playing it. Then Liam. Liam, of course, waited the longest to reach out. Probably sobering up, probably trying to spin it in his head like I was overreacting. When he finally did text, it was as smug and clueless as ever. Bro, why'd you dip? I thought we were good. I didn't respond. I just blocked his number. By noon, my Aunt Janet had called. Then Kelsey, his fiancée. I didn't know how she got my number, but the message she left was long and filled with fake concern. I just think it's really toxic to walk out on your family like this. Liam looks up to you, you know. That one made me laugh out loud. Liam looked up to me. Please. He'd been taking from me since we were kids. When we were 8, he stole the $10 grandma gave me and blamed it on our cousin. In high school, he crashed my bike and said someone else took it. And every single time, my parents covered for him. He's just younger, they'd say. He's figuring things out. You're the older brother. You're supposed to set an example. Yeah, I did set an example. I worked hard, stayed out of trouble, helped when no one else would. And they treated it like background noise. Like a given. Over the next few days, things got weird. My mom tried to guilt trip me through mutual relatives. I heard through my cousin Hannah that mom was telling people I'd run away because I couldn't handle Liam growing up. That I was jealous of his engagement. That I refused to share like a real man. But the story started breaking down quickly. Because what they didn't expect, what they could never imagine, was that I didn't just take my car and leave. I took everything that was mine. The joint account I had with mom, emptied. It was supposed to be for emergencies, but I was the only one ever putting money into it. I'd been quietly transferring the funds over the past month when I saw her start using it to pay for Liam's things. I let her think it was still active until the party. The moment I left, I shut it down. The house internet, the utilities, all in my name. All canceled. The credit card under my account they were just borrowing for a while. Deactivated. And remember the mortgage? That monthly $1,400 I'd been covering for 6 months while dad was between disability checks. Yeah, I stopped that too. Left them a printed schedule of the remaining balance on the fridge next to my note. Highlighted in red. Effective this month, I will no longer be contributing. I wasn't petty. I was surgical. They hadn't just crossed a line. They'd jumped a canyon. And now I was done building bridges. I didn't vanish completely. I moved into a small apartment downtown, kept my job, kept my routine. I let the silence grow. For 3 weeks, I didn't say a word. And that's when the cracks started showing. One afternoon, Hannah texted me a screenshot from Liam's Facebook. His status update. Some people only love you when you're useful. Sad how family can be the first to turn their back on you. The comments were filled with the usual pity party nonsense. You deserve better. Stay strong, bro. Some people are just toxic. But the best part? A comment from someone I didn't recognize that said, "Is this the guy who stole his brother's car and then cried when the bills showed up?" It got 217 likes before Liam deleted the post. A week later, Mom finally called me from a different number. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail. Her voice was shaky, not angry, just tired. "Nathan, we need to talk. Things are hard right now. Your father's trying to pick up more hours, but the pain's getting worse. And Liam, he's struggling. He misses you. We all do. Please come by. Just for dinner. We can work this out." I stared at the phone for a long time. The woman who weeks ago handed my car keys to my brother like it was a party favor, now asking me to come home? I didn't delete the message, but I didn't reply either, because I was waiting, not just for them to miss me, but for them to understand me. And soon, they'd get something even harder to ignore. The moment where this story truly turns. The one where all their choices come crashing down. The thing about silence is, it makes people nervous. Especially people who are used to you always picking up, always fixing things, always smoothing over their mess. I think that's what got to them the most. Not the missing car, not the canceled bills, but the fact that I didn't come running. They thought I was bluffing. They thought I'd cool off. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. So I waited. And in the meantime, I did something they never expected. I started gathering receipts. Not literal ones, although I had those too. Transfers, payments, credit card charges. No, I mean the kind of receipts that tell a story. I printed statements from my bank going back a full year. Labeled the payments I made on their behalf. Highlighted Liam's expenses, the times Mom borrowed my card and used it to buy him new sneakers, a phone, even a weekend getaway with Kelsey to a spa. I pulled my original lease agreement for the car, which I had paid off in full 6 months ago. Title? In my name. Insurance? Also mine. Watch? Same thing, registered, documented, and included on my personal property insurance. The cherry on top? A screenshot of the messages between Liam and one of his buddies where he bragged, "My stupid brother just gave me his car for free. LOL. Thank you, Hannah, for sending me that." I wasn't building a case to sue, at least not yet. I was building something stronger, a truth that couldn't be spun. And then, at exactly 4 weeks to the day from the engagement party, I sent them a package. I used registered mail, so they'd have to sign for it. A large envelope. No return address. Just a crisp stack of documents. No letter. No explanation. Let the paperwork speak. Later that night, I got a text from Dad. Just 2 words. "You win." I ignored it. But the next day, something strange happened. I got a call at work from Kelsey. She'd never called me before. Barely spoke to me at the party. And now she was leaving me a voicemail that sounded like someone reading off a hostage note. "Hi, Nathan. I got your packet. Liam didn't show me all of it, but thank you for being honest. I didn't know about the money, or the car, or any of it. He said you were okay with everything." There was a long pause. Then her voice changed. "I need to think. I don't know if we're still. Thank you." She hung up. I didn't expect that. Didn't plan for it either. But it felt like a domino shifting. Like someone finally turned on the light in a very dark room. Then, 3 days later, it all came crashing down. It was a Thursday, just after midnight. I was off duty and lying on my couch, watching reruns with a bowl of cereal, when my phone rang. Private number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello. Nathan." It was Liam. His voice was quiet. Not angry. Not smug. Just hollow. Like someone had sucked the air out of him. She left. Silence. Kelsey packed her things and went back to her mom's. She said she doesn't want to marry someone who lies like I do. She said I embarrassed her. That I let my family use people like garbage. He laughed. A dry, bitter sound. She even gave the watch back. Left it on the counter. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. I wasn't about to console him. "You really did it, man. You burned it all down." That's when I finally spoke. "No," I said calmly. "You burned it down. I just stopped holding the hose." Click. He hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after that. Not with satisfaction. Not with guilt. Just finality. Because for the first time, he'd said something close to the truth. He had burned it down. They all had. And now they were left standing in the ashes, looking for someone to blame. But I was no longer their fire extinguisher. And that would become even clearer when the next storm hit. Because this story wasn't over, not by a long shot. They were about to lose more than just comfort. They were about to lose control. I waited another 2 weeks before I heard from my parents again. But this time, it wasn't a call or a text. It was a knock on my door. It was a quiet evening. I'd just gotten home from a shift and had Thai takeout spread on the kitchen counter. My apartment was small, clean, quiet, exactly how I liked it. When I heard the knock, I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I thought it might be a neighbor. But then came the second knock, firmer, like someone who didn't want to be ignored. I opened the door, and there they were, Mom and Dad. They looked older. I don't mean just tired. I mean like the last month had aged them in fast forward. My dad had bags under his eyes and was using his cane again. My mom looked pale and smaller than I remembered, like someone who had been shrinking under the weight of denial. "Nathan," she said, forcing a smile. "Can we come in?" I didn't move. She looked past me, into my apartment. "We just want to talk. Please." I stepped aside, not because I wanted them there, but because I wanted to hear what they had to say face to face. I needed to see if they were actually ready to take responsibility, or if this was just another performance. They sat on the couch, side by side. I didn't offer them anything to drink. I sat across from them, arms crossed. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my dad cleared his throat. "We messed up," he said flatly. Mom flinched at the bluntness, but she nodded. "We really did." I didn't say anything. I let the silence do the work. Dad looked down at his hands. "When your brother moved in, we thought we were helping him. And when he got engaged, we wanted to believe it meant he was finally growing up. But we didn't want to see, how much of that came at your expense. You didn't just not see it," I said, voice low. "You endorsed it. You gave him my watch. My car. You called a vote like it was a game show prize." Mom winced. "I know. I don't have an excuse for that." Dad sighed. "We thought you were strong, that you could handle anything. You've always been the one we never had to worry about." "That's not a compliment," I said. He nodded. "I know that now." They told me about the fallout. How Kelsey had left, how Liam spiraled. He'd moved out a week after the breakup and hadn't been heard from in days. No job, no stability, no plan. And suddenly, they were alone. No car, no backup account. Just two people sitting in a house they could no longer afford, wondering how it all fell apart. I asked them why they were telling me this. "Because we need help," Mom said softly, but not in the way we used to mean it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. She slid it across the table. I hesitated, then opened it. It was a check. $14,350. "The mortgage," she said. "The utilities. Everything you covered since March. We pulled what we could from savings. Sold some jewelry. We'll find a way to get the rest to you." I stared at the check. Not because of the amount, but because it was the first time they ever acknowledged that it wasn't theirs to take. I looked up. "You think money fixes this?" "No," Dad said. "But it's a start. We're going to sell the house," Mom added. "Downsize. We don't need all that space. We're applying for proper financial counseling, and we're asking a lawyer about restructuring Dad's disability claim. We're starting over." She looked me dead in the eye. "We're not here to beg. We're here to say sorry. And mean it." There was a pause. I didn't forgive them. Not immediately. But I nodded. That was enough for now. Then came the question I'd been waiting for. "Would you consider coming to Sunday dinner?" Mom asked. "Just as our son. No expectations. No obligations." I thought about it. Not because I missed them, but because I wanted to see if they could handle being around me without trying to use me. "Maybe," I said. "But if Liam shows up, I'm leaving." Mom nodded. "We understand." They left a few minutes later. I walked them to the door, but didn't hug them. It wasn't that kind of ending. Not yet. After they left, I sat alone for a long time, the check still on the table. I didn't cash it for 2 weeks. When I finally did, I donated half of it to a local shelter and used the rest to finish paying off my emergency medical training course. I never did go back to Sunday dinner. Instead, a few months later, I invited them to mine. It was a small gesture. Homemade lasagna, a bottle of wine, a couple of candles. They arrived on time. Brought dessert. They didn't mention money. Or Liam. Or what happened. They just talked. Asked questions. Listened. And when they left, Mom hugged me a little too tightly. Like she thought I might disappear again. And maybe I would have, if they hadn't changed. But they did. And so did I. As for Liam, I heard through Hannah that he eventually took a job out of state. Something low-level at a construction company. No car, no watch, just himself and the consequences he never thought he'd face. We haven't spoken since that night, and I'm okay with that. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not anyone's backup plan. I'm just me, living quiet, living clean, and most importantly, living on my terms.